Welcome back to episode 92 of Tall Boy Radio. The more astute amongst you will have noticed there's no Gaz again this week, as he still is not well and has also not got back in time from his weekend away in New York, unfortunately. We've moved it to a Monday night recording on his request, and then he didn't turn up anyway. So cheers, buddy. Thanks for that one. So, should we go around the room? Before we get to our guest, let's introduce the host who could make it, Andy.
Hello. I'm on the old pirate. I might have to go and get another bottle. I think I've drank most of it already. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to have to talk more again because the Gaz ain't here. So feel free for the guests to speak more.
And yeah, so we are joined by a guest this week. We've had him before and the Devil's Advocate episode. So Dave is back with us this week. Do you want to say hello and tell us what very questionable beer it is that you're drinking?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to be back on the show. I've got this this foul brew apparently called Marmite Pale Ale. Love it or hate it. I think you guys all disliked it. Would that be fair to say?
Intensely.
I didn't think it was too bad, personally.
Well, a friend at work, Gemma, she coincidentally last week had the same thing, and she sent me a picture, and it was exactly the same can. And her verdict was didn't love it, didn't hate it, but wouldn't buy it again. So I'm going to try it. It might not last very long. I don't like Marmite, so that's all right. That is.
What the hell?
Yeah.
You like that?
Okay. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
Gee whiz,
Actually, I bought. I wasn't going to pour it into a glass just in case it was absolutely foul. But that's all right. So I'm going to pour it into a glass and drink it.
Fair play to you, dude. Fair play to you.
There we go.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm drinking tonight then. So these are the beers that I ordered from belgianbeercompany.co.uk, and I am on one of Andy's favourites. We've talked about it on the podcast before, the Golden Drac, or Golden Dragon, as he tells us it means, based on, was it stolen from Constantinople or somewhere like that?
Yeah, Viking boat head or bow of a ship or whatever it was.
I actually think, dude, this may be the first time I've had this beer. So it's like the dark beer from Pirate. And I tell you what, dude, it is an absolute cracker. 10.5%. I've got a couple of those. And I also ordered myself, because I do quite like the Belgian cherry beers, a cherry choof as well. And as I told you last week, if you order from belgianbeer.co.uk on the build up to Halloween and use the trick or treat, so there's still time to do that, the trick or treat in the codes at the end, you get a treat, and my treat is a tooth glass rather, with a little gnome there on the front to enjoy my beer out of later. So I was pretty chuffed with that, although, and then I saw Andy's and he had the delirium glass, and I was a little bit envious of that, if I'm really honest. Right then, so the concept behind this is very similar to the last time that Dave was on. So that when Dave was on the last time, we did it we were doing it as a beer podcast then. So Dave came on, asked us a load of questions about beer and drinking, and we lied about how much we drank, said that we were all sensible, healthy drinkers, and just gave him the breakfast figures, not the rest of the day. So Dave, do you want to take it away, Dave? Do you want to ask us some questions? Do you want to delve into the minds of TBR?
Yeah, it's more. There was some questions I was going to ask, but I thought they might have been a bit too heavy for the podcast. Is reasonably light-hearted just lately, so I thought I've just got some topical questions, but just to explore your thoughts really and play the devil's advocate on it. I've only got a few that they're pretty a range of topics, and they're all pretty topical really. So the first one is about the COVID vaccinations, and it's quite simple: is it acceptable for frontline NHS health workers to refuse the vaccine and carry on with their job?
That's an interesting one. A nice light one to start us off with. Do you want to go first, Andy, or do you want to let me go first on that one?
I'll go. I find it interesting, the fact that it obviously reduces the high risk sort of aspect of the virus, doesn't it? The vaccine, it sort of like reduces your chances of having a serious issue, but you still can pass it on. So I don't see how it's overly relevant to, especially like frontline people, if they don't want to have it. They're going to pass it on either way, whether they've had it or not. So does it make a difference? If it stopped people from passing on the virus, then yeah, I think definitely have it. But as it's just reducing the impact of it, I don't think it really matters who's had the antivirus or not, or vaccine. Sorry.
So it does reduce the likelihood you're going to pass it on, but that's doesn't really matter. Is that what you're saying? It's, it doesn't stop it. So if it reduces it by 50%, like it's neither here or there.
It's not 50% though, is it? And certainly for the Delta variant, I don't think it makes a difference, does it? In terms of is that what they're saying now, that it makes no difference in terms of passing it on or not?
It drops off really. I think it does like 90% for like a while, but then it really drops off after a certain period, and then you've got to have another booster one. So we're going to be having boosters every like couple of months if it keeps going the way they're on about going.
But isn't that the thing to do? And if it's reducing the chance of passing it on to people in care homes, which are inherently older and sicker, and therefore much more likely to suffer and possibly die, shouldn't they be doing everything possible to reduce that risk, even if it's just a 5 or 10% reduction?
For me, yeah. For me, the thing is, because of the way that the vaccination works, and ultimately, you've got the right to refuse what you put inside your body. It's your choice, and you don't have to disclose your medical preferences, and you should never have to do that anyway. And certainly, your job should not depend on it, because it is optional. It is not mandatory, or is that the correct word? Yeah, it's not been mandated yet. It does sound like it is something that will go that way. And for me, the way that the vaccine works, I don't think, and this is where I struggle with the rollout of it and the way that it's been shared in the media, that there is only one narrative. It's not debated. The other side of the story is never put across. It seems to me that if you are vulnerable, absolutely, you need this vaccine. This is the sort of thing that is going to potentially protect you. Well, let's not beat around the bush either. It's still a 99% survival rate, even for, the vast majority of the population. It's that 1% that really, really need the vaccination, not the other 99%, because it doesn't stop it being passed on. So ultimately, if you feel that you need it, if you feel that you're vulnerable, if you feel that you could be affected, then absolutely, yeah, you should do it. But I don't think you should be mandating nurses and threatening that they lose their careers. These are the people that we stood on the doorstep and clapped last year, and now we're threatening to dismiss them because they won't take a shot in the arm. And there's still a legacy that needs to be proven for me with that. What is the long-term effects of this vaccination? Nobody knows. And the big question is, if you've got medical professionals who've seen the effects of COVID on a regular basis, dealing with it, and are probably, arguably, the most at risk in terms of picking it up and refusing it, the real question is why? Why are they refusing it? What do they know that isn't shared in the mainstream media?
Oh, maybe it's the unknown, but it's not them that the concern is for, is it? It's the old people they're looking after. And if that was your grandparents, I don't know about you, Andy, but I know Adam's on around, mine on around. But if they were, and they were in a care home and extremely vulnerable, and you knew that there was staff working there that were refusing to take the vaccine and therefore increasing the chance of passing it on to your grandparent, you'd say that's just roll the dice. That's fine. It's their choice.
It is their choice. So the bottom line is, it doesn't really prevent it getting passed on. It's not a significant difference in terms of. Have you seen the interview with a guy from Pfizer that was taped secretly, where he basically said it works on one facet of it, and that's what basically is how it reduces the damage. The best way, and it's a bit of an oxymoron, really. The best way to avoid catching COVID is to catch COVID and let your immune system do what it's been doing for thousands of years.
Assuming you survive that, then yeah, that's probably quite good.
99.7% of people do. At the risk of sounding rather flippant for those who sadly passed on, I don't want to be dismissive because, let's face it, it is a serious illness. It has a very negative side. It has made some people very, very poorly, and it's taken people's lives. The true total, I don't think we'll know because of the way that it's reported, but that's another matter.
Oh, okay. All right, let's move on from that one. That's a unanimous
I just got a
verdict,
quick interjection in that. I think this is I'm not a medical expert, but this saves my life. Get some alcohol in you.
Yeah, we were talking about this because Gaz isn't very well, and we basically said, Gaz, because Gaz doesn't drink whiskey. Gaz, get some whiskey in you, dude. Whiskey, it cures everything. Any medical ailment, apart from alcoholism. It's got a bit of a bad track record against that. Get some whiskey in you, dude. You'll sort yourself out.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, which is it's related in a sense, in that it's a grim one. And the question is, I guess, well, the statement is that we should allow euthanasia in the UK.
Yeah.
Don't just you agree that we should.
Absolutely, yeah. Not for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Unlucky, dude. You're 48. That's it. Take your time's up, son. Off to the clinic. No, not for. I'm not saying. I don't. Well, we certainly should be.
So, at what point does it become okay to say, you know what, I've had enough. My choice. I'm off.
Yeah, I think. Well, and this is why it's a thorny issue, isn't it? You should, as long as you can prove that you're of sound body and mind to make that decision, and it can be proved that that's the case. Because when you see the people who are in like the locked-in syndrome, and commonly it's people like that who are candidates for this, and how you put that forward, I don't know. It's a real difficult issue. But legally, as long as you're of sound body and mind and can prove that actually this is what I want to do, it can't be just for people who've got depression and things like that. It needs to be proven that the facts are. It's a difficult one. Yeah, it's a difficult. I'll let Andy answer that while I sum my words up in my mind.
Well, I suppose there's just severe illnesses, isn't it? If you're because there's some like illness where like your body feels like it's on fire and all your nerves tingle. I can't remember the name of it. I can't. Some like fire syndrome. Something like it's where all your nerves just like start tingling, and apparently like your body just, like I said, just feel like you're on fire, and there's no like cure for it and all that sort of stuff. They're just saying like, oh, we have to like cut your nerves and stuff like that. And I think some people have like resorted to suicide from stuff like that. So any instance like like the really odd, painful stuff or whatever, then yeah, it's let them have the choice. I think it's a choice. I think you take an animal to the vets and have it put down, but you can't decide on your own sort of life. I find that quite weird.
You can't, because of course suicide is, in any form is illegal, and it's effectively a murder charge. So even if you did it completely on your own, it's technically illegal. Obviously, if you succeeded, then it's not here or there. But whether it's assisted suicide or euthanasia, it's all. It's all, well, euthanasia is a murder charge, for assisted suicide is 14 years in prison. But it's not easy because you've got there's different situations, and as Andy says, if you're someone that's constantly in pain, where is it right that you should end your life? But then how do you know there's not a cure that's months away?
As if euthanasia is legal.
Yeah, well, it's true one way, isn't it? I think that's the thing. We're not trying. Obviously, we're not being flippant. We're only saying for people who are severely ill, you've got to be very, very careful. For people with, like, say, mental health issues or severe gambling debts or anything like that feel like they want to end it all, and suicide, like you rightly say, is one of the biggest killers in the UK of men our age, and that includes Andy as well. But is it something like, well, I don't want to speak out without knowing the figures. It wouldn't be right to do so, but maybe we'll share a post about it on the social media. But the amount of people that take their lives actually is terrifying. And we need to be doing something about that as a nation. We need to be doing something about that medically and focusing on these people and helping them get the help that they need. But at the same time, we also have to recognize the flip side of the coin, the juxtaposition of the situation, that there are people in an incredible amount of suffering, that they're suffering a fate worse than death, if that makes any sense. And if their very existence causes them that much discomfort, like through the different syndromes that we've just talked about, like Andy says, if your dog was suffering, you'd take it to the vets and they'd do the right thing. They'd take it out of that suffering and that pain. And I think that's something that as humans, we should have the right to choose for ourselves. It's society and the way that it sets up that stops us from doing it. Like I say, the law and the legal system making it a punishable crime for those who assist us in doing it. And in some of these cases, these people can't do it by themselves, and their loved ones will still help them and assist them, knowing that they face a very serious and stiff penalty afterwards. And it's these people that we need to help, I think, by making that available to them.
It'd be interesting to see the stats from is it Switzerland or somewhere like that? They've got the euthanasia places.
Switzerland.
It'd be interesting to see what they're. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what sort of qualifies them for, why people go there. You know what I mean? And what reasons and how they come to that conclusion of wanting to do that. And I think that'd be a good starting point. At least you're getting some sort of data behind it.
Yeah, and lots of countries are changing the rules or changing the laws recently to allow it in different circumstances. Switzerland, Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Canada. Some pretty Western countries that are changing the laws to allow it, but they're tiptoeing and cautiously. So the terminally ill with no more than 6 weeks to live, and it's undisputed, that sort of thing. To me, the biggest risk of allowing it is when you've just got granny and granddad who are in a home that they can't get out of bed anymore. They're perhaps doubly incontinent, but they might still be sound in mind, and they're saying, I'm just a burden on my kids. I think you should just end it for me. And to me, I'm not sure that is right.
No. And I think that's why you sort of need to prove, like I think Andy said, or yourself, I forget who said it, that the level of suffering, that they aren't suffering. Like you say, they might be a burden on their family. And Lord Almighty, I apologise if anybody's offended by that statement. If Lord knows.
No, you don't need to apologise, because that's how a lot of old people think.
I know, yeah.
They think they are a burden.
I don't want the old people listening to this thinking, am I a burden? that's my point. Don't take it the wrong way. We're not being frivolous with your feelings. No, totally. These are the people that if there's a system there that allows euthanasia, they should not get through the net. It's like, no, you are not suffering. Yes, you are not well, because that's just age. Age takes these things away from us. Lord Almighty, we all know that. We're all heading that way. Our hairlines have receded in some cases. Dave's looking rather smug about that statement. But these people, these aren't the candidates for that. It needs to be very, very heavily policed and heavily measured, just to make sure that. Sorry,
you're saying it's driven by pain, so not mental suffering. You're talking about physical. So you draw a line between the two.
Yeah, I would say I would use that statement where your life, you're living a life that's worse than death. It's insufferable.
Yeah, but that's not the same as pain, is it? Because if you're an old person in the environment, in the situation I just described, you're not in any pain. You just feel that you can't do anything. But then we're about you mentioned locked-in syndrome. I don't know if that has physical pain or it's just mental anguish that you can't move.
No, Lord knows. I don't want to find out either.
I think you have to level it out, don't you? So like any like you said, terminal stuff. There you go, tick. Review that a bit quicker. Then you got like another level of the more physical pain or whatever. Then you got another level like the old age person whose partner of 80 years has died and they're on their own now and they're like, well, don't want to live anymore. You got that sort of level as well. I think you just like got those different levels that need to be, categorized and reviewed. So if you're, I don't think you can just say, oh, physical pain. I think there is a mental aspect as well. Yeah.
But the problem with that though is when you get down to just mental, that could be anybody, any age.
Yeah, I think you have to look at counselling and stuff like that and see what sort of measures you can do around that. Because I've noticed, I'm really going to put a broad spin on it for like a lot of like things nowadays is about mental health and stuff like that. And I think more sort of needs to be done around that before you think of suicide and stuff and euthanasia. Yeah, like I said, I think for males suicide's quite high. And what is that for? Is it counselling they need or something like that?
Yeah. So it's a grey area. Clearly, there's no black and white, is there? I mean, I think I'm probably all three of us, by the sounds of it, or if it's a terminal illness with quite a short space of time to go, and there is physical suffering, that's kind of it seems pretty obvious that you should allow somebody to make that decision. Anything beyond that, and I think it's just very, very difficult.
I think the one thing we can all agree on is the three of us are not qualified to decide. Ultimately.
Well, no, but the thing about it though, is it's not a medical or a scientific thing. It's so much more a sort of an ethical and a moral thing. I mean, life, depending on where you are on the religious spectrum, all life is precious and should be preserved at any cost. At one extreme, and all through the spectrum of I'll do what you want. It's your life. So I don't think it is a medical or a scientific. I think it's the bigger picture is that the ethical. Is it right to allow someone or to condone someone taking their own life? Okay, let's move on. So I want a little bit more lighthearted, or not lighthearted, but not as dark. And this one came from Alice, actually, my daughter. And it's COVID related again, but it's about students and their GCSEs, and should the this year and next year's cohorts of exam takers somehow have some slack, have it made a bit easier so that they can do better because of the situation they've been through, or should they just sit exams like every year previously has, apart from last year?
Go on, you'll have to forgive my ignorance now, because I'm going to shock you, if listeners. It's been some years since I did my GCSEs. Is it all exam based now, or is it coursework based as well? I don't know.
It's more tilted towards exams in most subjects, and also I'm going to put your drum kit down, and most of it is quite a broad range of topics of which you could be tested on anything, and the argument goes that it should be based more on coursework and intermediary tests, and you should be told more specifically what is going to be in the exam so that your learning and studying is more focused.
Right, that's a tough one then. I guess if I was sitting my GCSEs, I would like a little bit of leeway on this subject, given that I've been potentially homeschooled for 12 months, and that's no reflection on my parents and their teaching abilities. But I think I would like a little bit of leeway in terms of they're not given a level playing field compared to everybody else's. How you work out what it is, I don't know, but personally, I would say a little bit as well. They had a little bit last year, am I right in saying?
Yeah, they did. It was all teacher assessed graded last year. So across the board, the grade inflation is the phrase, where grades were across the board significantly better than previous years. Right. And the argument for that is that or the risk or the feeling is that they therefore would be the cohort of students when they are applying for jobs. And for example, me or you, Adam, I don't know if you, Andy, recruit people. We've got a CV in front of us. We look at the year, we look at the grades, and we go, yeah, they're not real. And that's the fear, that the grade inflation, you immediately go, not real, didn't sit exams, and you knock a couple of grades off.
I tell you what. Oh no, knocking grades off, that wouldn't work for me at all. I was going to say I might start lying about my age on my CV. I could pay. Listen, I wasn't allowed to revise properly. COVID and all that. I suffered during my GCSE years. When did you take them? Let me just work it out now. Was it 1991?
that was your A levels. 89 was your GCSE.
Oh Jesus, that's just depressed me. Yeah, that's right. Oh my God. What are your thoughts, Andy?
I think they should just do, like, for myself, I do remote working now, and in the near future it might be a hybrid sort of thing. And I wonder whether they should do that with schools, but have a rethink about the whole school system, because there's a lot of stuff you don't learn in school that I think you should do, whether it's just basic life skills and, like just stuff like, you get your first paycheck. What is it? What's national insurance? What's tax and all that? Where does it go? What does it do? And it's sort of stuff you don't get taught. It's a bit off topic. I'd rather see that sort of stuff come into play a bit more, because in the real world, like, how often do you if you struggle with something, you just look it up, don't you? You can look in a book, you can go on the internet, or that sort of stuff. Whereas in a test, it's like a notebook. I don't know if you call it a notebook, but you've got nothing no notes or anything like that. You just got to try and remember it all. And it's quite a stressful period for when you're 16, is it? 15, 16? To try and remember all this stuff, do your lessons, and then revise for your tests, which could then decide your whole life. When you're 16, you're not really thinking about that sort of stuff. You're just thinking about, boys, girls, or whatever, and what you're going to do. Like, what you're going to play football tonight or whatever. It's quite a weird thing, I find. I still don't know what I want to do, and I'm in my 30s.
The 30s, okay. Some of us nearly in our 50s. But no, I mean, that is a slight aside, Andy, but you're absolutely right. And we've been out with the family, and we went to see a friend we haven't seen for a while, since way before pre-COVID. And we were talking about CPR. She does, her name's Claire, she does training for CPR and first aid. And we were just talking, and Alice was saying, well, that's the sort of thing we should learn in school, because that's actually going to be useful in my life. I mean, you might not need it, but at some point you're going to have an injury or encounter somebody. And she was making that very same point. And your point about exams, I mean, I'm not known for my memory.
No, you are known for your memory. It's just extremely poor. That's what you're known for.
I'll refer you back to a previous episode where I think I proved you all wrong. I can't remember which one, Mrs. Gunter, that episode.
Yeah, you did, actually, to be fair. Yeah, you did. I'll give you that.
But I know that if my exam results would have been a lot better if I had more coursework and less on the exams. I mean, Adam may have mentioned this on a previous episode, but we weren't the most studious of students, and our economics A-level exam, Adam, can you remember why we were late to it?
Yeah, we were watching Sesame Street. But there's a caveat to that. Basically, the school we went to on a Friday, obviously the teachers were a little bit on the lazy side, and they like to finish early on a Friday, so you had a short lunch break. But we were sat there watching Sesame Street, and Dave says to me, oh, do we have to go back early? It's like, no, dude, this is like national curriculum. It's not going to be based around what our teachers do. We're good watching this for another half an hour. We weren't, as it turns out. We turned up half an hour late. So I think, was it an hour exam as well?
It was an hour and a half, but we lost a significant amount of time.
We did, yeah.
Because we turned up to the old vicarage it was in, which was like the old church building, and there was nobody around. So we thought we were early. And then we looked through a window and saw everyone sitting in there writing the exam. So yeah, it didn't go well.
Truthfully, that's the only reason I failed. It wasn't 2 years of doing absolutely sweet FA.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Andy, I don't think you actually answered whether you thought that the COVID year students should be given a leg up to make it easier for them to bridge that gap through the last lack of face-to-face teaching.
Well, funnily enough, some of my niece and nephews are like that sort of age, and I think like last year, I think they got the scores predicted on coursework and mock exams or something. So you are going to get a difference. It's not fair on kids next year after, who don't have to go through it. So it's how do you predict that sort of grade? But to answer the question, make them redo it. No, I don't know. I don't know. I think the school system's that defined for every year. You're not really going to say, "Oh, we'll put you back a couple of months so you can like learn it and stuff." I think they are disadvantaged in the sense of they've not got that structured classroom of being around everyone and just trying to concentrate on that subject. I don't know.
I've got to tell you a story now, based on our college time. This is myself and Gaz. I'm not going to name the lecturer because if he's still lecturing, it's the kind of thing that would get him the sack. Basically, it came towards the end of the year, and he came to us and said, "Listen, guys, you're outstanding by about 3 or 4 pieces of work." And we're like, "Yeah, sorry about that, dude." He goes, "No, I need it now, because if someone asks to see it and I'm giving you a grade, then we need to present it and show that I'm up to it." And we said, "Listen, you don't want to have to mark our work. We don't want to have to fill it in. We don't have to sit down and waste our summer writing stuff down. Tell you what, if you get a request for our work, here's our telephone numbers. Give us a bell. We'll do it and we'll drop it off. And you just average it out the rest of it." And this guy went, "Yeah, fair point, that. Yeah, I will, yeah." Like, seriously, you serious? You can do that? It's like, yeah. Oh, nice one, dude. You're better than I thought. Yeah, so we did about half the pieces of work we did for one of our. Well, to be fair, that wasn't unusual behaviour for us. To be fair,
yeah. You did start that by saying you're outstanding. I thought, hang on a minute, where's this going? And then it's outstanding work, not outstanding individuals.
I think anyone who knows us knows that's the case.
Maybe that answers it for the kids this year. Is just like look at all the past school behaviours and stuff like that and take an average, like they did last year, I suppose. If someone's like get B's all the time, then there you go, B.
Jobs are good. Actually, Dave, wasn't that your policy in the multiple choice in economics as well? Just put B all the way. I'm going to get at least like 25% of it, right?
Well, I don't know if you remember the maths lesson where we had a multiple choice at 40, and Mr. Haskell. I made that up. The maths teacher.
Mr. Haskell taught us economics, dude.
Okay, there was a maths teacher.
Mr. Whitley taught us maths briefly.
There we go. So I can't remember that. So we had a maths multiple choice at 40. It could have been economics actually, but I think it was maths. It might have been economics actually.
It was.
Must have been economics.
It was. There's that memory again.
Yeah, my memory's not good, but I do remember that. Okay, it was out of 40, and he got all the papers, and he said, "I'm not going to read the scores out." And I think I was sitting towards the back, and I shouts out, "Read the scores out," and the words to the effect were, "It's out of 40. 8E was the questions. David, you got 8 out of 40." Which is basically bang on the average if you guessed every answer. So it wasn't the best times.
No, I think he actually said I think it was out of 4, and you if you just put B all the way around, you'd have done better.
Got more, yeah. Yeah, but the fact that I shouted out, read them out, and then was made a complete idiot of myself. But there you go. That's school life.
Well, what you should have said is really that's a bad reflection on your teaching, Kinky Jeff.
Yeah, I could have blamed the teacher. That would have been a bit unfair, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, very, very unfair.
Okay, so that's I think that there's no right or wrong, but for me, I think you have to go down the assess grades, purely because I think the more disadvantaged children would come off far worse if you didn't, because they're the ones that are going to miss more. They're not going to have necessarily the home learning, home studying, the motivation, the parents, the support network. So they were the ones that would be disproportionate. So my view is you've got to assess it, and you've got to do the best you can. And if their grades are slightly higher, well, you know what, that might mean they're getting to college places and A-level places, and COVID will be out, and they will either make it or they might have to drop out and change a different course. But at least they've had the opportunity. If you do it the other way, people are, it's just going to be so unfair on so many people.
Is it a thing though that there's going to be a set amount of college and university places anyway? In terms of that, maybe if the grades all tend to be a little bit higher, then maybe the requirements to get in would also be a little bit higher. So and likewise, the colleges need the money; they need to fill these places. If the grades were a little bit lower, would the grades, the acceptance level, would that also be lower? I don't know. I think maybe that either way, there's going to be a level. Yeah, it's going to be a level
self-adjusting. Yeah,
it's going to be a level playing field, maybe.
Yeah. Just a slide aside, I didn't know so what other beers were. I got this Aldi Plum Porter, and I'm not that impressed. It's a bit bland, to be honest. I don't know whether that's just because I've had the Marmite. But I prefer the Marmite to the Aldi Plum Porter. So.
Wow. I must admit, I wasn't a big fan of that Aldi Plum Porter. I couldn't really slate it, just in case I was wrong. If I was, it's bloody awful, then it turns out, hang on, that's the Titanic one. That's the one I claim is one of my favourite beers. But no, have you tried the Titanic Plum Porter?
Yeah, I really like it, and it's got quite a rich taste that actually sits on your palate. This has got a bit of a funny smell, and it's just not good, actually.
It's not plummy at all. Actually, we had a guy on. Actually, we were talking about beer just before we started, and Andy, I don't know if you can tell in the background because he's blurred it, his brewing kit in the background, and we had a guy on who made his own beer, and he's familiar with Titanic, and it is just a plum essence that they put in their beer. It's never seen a set of plums.
Well, I don't think. Aldi's even seen essence of a set of plums. Oh dear me. Okay, I've probably I've got a couple more questions, but I'm just gonna do one of them. And you touched on this actually in your last episode. In fact, two or three of the things I was thinking about, you kind of brought up in the last episode, which okay, fair enough. You've stolen my list. But one of them is social media. And is it a good or bad thing? But I thought more specifically, we've seen quite a few cases where we've had people that have just had, you made this Twitter post 15 years ago, right? Burn him on the stake, sack him, send him to prison, And I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. If you drag up tweets or posts from the past, should you suddenly be admonished for them? Admonished? Is that the right word?
It is. Good word, dude. Good word.
Excellent. Yeah. Couldn't spell it, but there we go.
Yeah.
Should you suddenly be held account for something you did such a long time ago?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I don't think it is.
Go on.
Because I'm different from like last year. You know what I mean? Times change. You learn from stuff. You move on. And it's like all these. Like a couple of years ago when they're pulling down statues of people, and it's like, okay, there were slavers in the past, and you should never look beyond that. But you got to learn from it, haven't you? You can't just erase history and say everything's hunky dory. It's happened. It's what's made the world of where we are now because of whatever slavery and genocide and world wars and all this rubbish. You're going to get to a very PC state of just blacking out history if it keeps going the way it's going. And going to Twitter, I know there's been a few actors that have been fired from the projects and stuff because of something they've written when they're like kids. But then I'm not going to name her because I can't stand her, but there's a modern artist who sings. I say sings, she talks. And she was racist about 2 years ago. And they're still like putting her up as like the best thing since sliced bread. Like, it's infuriating because she's part of the woke movement sort of thing.
okay.
Yeah, really grinds me. And this is the thing about social media. It's got really good benefits, and there's some aspects I really like about it. But then you start getting to the people that have, I don't know if it's psychological issues or whatever. They've got to just post crap and big themselves up all the time to make themselves feel better. It's really putting me off lately. I've been debating whether to come off all social media, but I'd lose half my friends. It's the only way I speak to them. I don't ring people up anymore. I just message them. But yeah, it's such a double-edged. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's such a double-edged sword. Like, you got the good aspect of connecting the world, but then you got just people ruining it with their issues and the wokeness. That's really big on my annoyance lately. I think you just need to think about it more before being flippant and saying, "Burn him, pull that down, block that out." Yeah, I'll calm down now.
I was going to say that was a. I thought I was one of the less serious questions, but right up Andy's street, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, as I said, I like social media because there's some of the things on it, but I think people just take it to the extreme and it just ruins it for me.
So I bet you in terms of the question I asked, I think you basically answered it by saying, if it's ages ago, you shouldn't still be held account for it. But then equally, there's people that recently have put stuff up there and it's ignored.
I think it depends what it was. Obviously, if you killed someone, then yeah, get done for it. But if it's just like a flippant remark, a bit of humour, it's like a lot of old TV shows are not being shown anymore. But that's what the times were. It wasn't. Don't get me wrong. It's not acceptable. It was then, and it's not now. You know what I mean? You got to learn from it. That's how our life goes, isn't it?
So what about you, Adam? Someone makes a tweet, let's say 15 years ago, and I was discussing this again in the car journey today. We were discussing this, me, Catherine, and the kids, and we used Catherine used the example of a Tory MP. This wasn't based on a real, well, it might have been in her mind, but the example was a Tory MP 25 years ago. Was a member of the Nazi Party, and they're up there on the front benches now, and then that comes to light, and that was her scenario, and it's like, well, should they be totally, admonished, my new word, and basically stripped of their job and thrown out of society?
I think it'd be trouble to find the Tory MP without that kind of background. Yeah, that's one of the necessities of the job, I would have thought. Certainly their draconian nonsense they seem to be coming up with at the minute. Gee whiz.
I saw a meme the other day saying, like, in a normal job you wouldn't hire someone who's 70 because you don't think the right of mind, that sort of stuff. And it's like all MPs are like that. That sort of age. It's like, makes sense.
It does make sense when you apply like that. Certainly, there's a rule there that should be applied. Think for myself in social media, there's a danger there, because a lot of people will put something online without that barrier there, that they'll say something that they wouldn't necessarily say in real life. But ultimately, the thought's there, whether it's misguided, whether it's incorrect, the thought is in their mind and it's come out, and it's almost like social media and Twitter, which is like a micro-blogging site. It can almost be like you're in a monologue. Some people are tweeting it, an incredible amount of time, sharing their thoughts, and they could be castaway thoughts that they then, like you say, 10 years later, step away from. But it's there, and they can be held account to it. And I think one of those things, it's a quote that's often attributed to Mike Tyson, and I don't necessarily think that it was him who said it was, that people are so used to talking smack like that without the threat of getting punched in the mouth. And that's the thing, the things that people put on there, you would not say to somebody's face, because that barrier has been removed. So it is a very, very dangerous window into people's minds and their thoughts. And the question is, should they be held accountable? Then, like Andy says, we change. The people need to be given a second chance. And if you can't give someone a second chance, if they stand by it and say, well, do you know what, I do think that the Nazis did a wonderful job, and that's why I expect you to vote for me as a Conservative MP, then yeah. Do it. Don't clip that. Don't share that out. That is an example that will be taken completely out of context. I am not advocating the Nazis. Let me make that very, very clear. But ultimately, if you still stand by that, then you've got to be held accountable to it. You share it, even just you might have only have 3 followers at that time, and then you got 3 million later because you've become famous or you've been given a platform that is in a different media or medium. So I do think potentially you should, but at the same time, we need to keep in mind that we grow up. I would hate if I were to put my diaries online that I wrote when I kept a diary from 1986 to around about 2000 odd. The stuff, if I read it back now, it makes me cringe because I'm a different person. Life experiences change you, and we need to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that it's a problem with media, full stop, not just social media, because it's not. Who was the cricketer reasonably, reasonably recently? I mean, Gaz was here. He'd tell us who had made some questionable comments quite a long time ago when he's clearly a completely different person. It cost him basically, and not his career completely, but it cost him a tour of Australia, or whatever it was, and it had a significant impact on him. His brand, if you like, in terms of his career and his earning potential, because of something he said 10, 12 years ago, which was on Twitter, and then it could have just been a flippant comment. I mean, I don't know if that was a flippant comment or whether that was his mindset for years. I don't know, but it's quoted as an example, as a throwaway comment, almost completely different person now, but it's done quite a lot of harm to his career and his potential.
Well, even closer to home, Aaron Ramsdale, the new Arsenal keeper, it had been brought up that he'd sent an abusive tweet to Piers Morgan, and it was
that's
years
loud,
ago.
isn't it?
Well, listen, but he apologised for it. I think that's disgraceful. Stand by that one. That is one you should stand by. Abuse Piers Morgan. If you're on social media, feel free to say what you like to that man. I've got him blocked, so I can't tweet him. I can't abide him. And I would say most Arsenal fans can't either, because he does not speak for us. Let me make that very clear. Carry on.
Well, that was all the questions I got, actually. One was a completely change of tact, light-hearted, because I don't want to go down any more dark stuff. I've just come from coaching, which is why I got my initials on here. DC. I don't normally wear a top with my own initials on, but I've just come coaching. I coach a couple of football teams, my Albert's team under 13s, and I've started with a local Alsager FC, an under 9s girls team, and we play in it's called a mixed league, but it's almost exclusively boys teams which we play in. And one thing that I've learned quite a lot recently, or by trying to learn about coaching youth football, is that winning isn't important. And I don't know what your views are on that, because I've neither of you have got kids that are in competitive sport at the moment, because they're both young, unless Matilda's suddenly joined in under 5s team or something. No. But I wonder what your thoughts are on that, from maybe from nieces and nephews and other parents.
I think this should be very interesting on how important winning is. Basically, I'm sat here facing 2 Man United fans who didn't do too well on the weekend at home to Liverpool, did they? I saw Salah scoring a hat-trick at Old Trafford. 5-0.
You're breaking up.
What I'm saying is, if winning is important, you must have been very upset on the weekend, is what I'm saying.
Wow,
it's taking part that counts.
Yeah. You didn't even do that from what I saw.
Well, that's the thing, because when I was at school and you had sports day, it very much was about winning, and you got the medal and the prize for coming first, and then we had the dad's races and all of that sort of stuff, and it was it was definitely all about winning, and there's been a lot of criticism of school sports days that everyone gets a medal for taking part, and it's and then people go, that's pathetic, where's the winning spirit? And from a dad that's watched Albert play football in a team for a couple of years where I've not been involved in coaching, and you stand on the sidelines and you think it's about winning. When I've changed tact and I've got into coaching and I've done all the studying and learning and read what you're supposed to do at youth, at foundation stage, which is like up to under 12s, winning should be so far from what you're doing. And I and it's a difficult one, because I had a conversation with a parent, somebody I work with whose young children or young lad plays in an under 6 or 7s team, something like that. And she was saying, no, it's definitely about winning. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. It's not at all. It was difficult for me to understand that other side now that I've seen it from the coaching point. Because my girls, they were called the Meerkats, under 9s team, and they've never played football in a team before. They're in something called the Wildcats, which is girls of 5 to 11, and they just go and they play football and they learn basic skills. And then I was asked to start a team, so we started a team under 9s girls, the first one in for All Asia. They got 23 teams, no girls teams, and me and the other coaches were really fixed on, it's not about winning, it's about improving as players and involving as people and players. And it's you look around at other coaches at the same age groups, and it's all about winning, and it baffles me. So I don't know if you two have views on that. And again, if you haven't got kids of that sort of age, it may be more difficult. But you sitting as parents of kids that will go through that, what's your sense of where winning fits into that?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm a big Steelers fan, as anybody who knows me. And there's a player who played for us, a gentleman by the name of James Harrison. And he is one of the most competitive men that has ever set foot on that field. And I follow him on Instagram, and that idea doesn't sit particularly well with him. It is about competition. The participation medals is something he does not get behind. It's like, you are number one or you are nothing, and you strive to be number one, and that's the only way you're going to get there. Now, for myself, if Gaz was here, he would tell you what a frustrating man I was to play darts with, because we used to play competitive darts on a Monday night for the cricket club. I couldn't care less whether I won or whether I lost. I enjoyed it. It was just fun turning up, having a game of darts, and if I was beaten by a better player, then fair play, well done, you beat me, you deserved it. If I was beaten by a player who some could say maybe was worse than I was, and Lord knows there's only one or two of them out there, if they beat me, then fair play, well done, I had an off game, you beat me, but I enjoyed the game anyway. And if you take enjoyment out of the game, then that's winning. That's winning. If you've enjoyed yourself, and that's true of anything in life, if you're enjoying it, you've won.
Yeah. What about you, Andy?
So when I was in school, I represented my school for everything, like basketball, athletics, football, tennis, anything. And it was always, my goal was always to win. But I'd rather, as long as I did my best, that's when I was generally happier. I think you have to have a goal of trying to win. But I suppose when you're younger and you're just getting into sport, I think the goal is just to better yourself rather than winning will come down the line, sort of thing. So I don't know. I think you got to set targets, whether it's winning or not, I don't know, but whether playing well together and putting your skills, like before a game, you might do like little box drills of like a couple of defenders and you pass it around and that sort of stuff. As long as you start incorporating that sort of stuff into the game, then I think winning just comes from it. Does that make sense?
That's perfect sense, because that's exactly the way that we do it. We have training sessions, we focus on one thing, and the success on a match is whether we're doing that, whether we've managed to beat 2 or 3 players, whether we've done a step over, whether we've passed a feat, whatever it is, we carried into that. And our team, the girls team, it's the first game they played, we turned up. We'd had one training, so I formed the team, got all the parents around, said what we were doing, and it's a girls' team, but we said it's we're not a girls' team, but we're all players. We're footballers. We're players, because I didn't want this sort of passive sexism of the girls. You've got to beat the boys. You're going to beat the boys, because that's immediately saying boys are better, and therefore you've got to do something exceptional. So we call them players, and that's a challenge, and it's quite difficult. And even at the match yesterday, I still a couple of times shouted, "Girls, come on, girls!" And it's like, no, players, because you've got to keep it gender neutral. In my mind, that's the way I'm approaching it. And I've got a coaching team. So Alice is one of my coaches, and then I've got Joe and Edie, so two other females. So it's an all girls team, and I'm the only male. But I was the one that put my hand up and said I'll set the team up. But the first game we played, we had one training session. We turned up to the match in Crewe, and it was like, okay, does everybody know what a throw-in is? No. 2 or 3 of the girls knew what a throw-in is. The others didn't. Okay, well, don't worry, the ref will help you. What's a ref? So I mean that's where we started, and I don't know what the score was, because we don't keep score, and they didn't care. But they went out and they enjoyed themselves, and and now we've played 5 games, and the transformation is just awesome, and their determination and the way they carry their training in, and they absolutely don't care about the score. And as coaches, we have to believe that, because if we don't believe it, they won't. And the first question as a parent of Albert's team, the first question you ask is, what was the score? Well, to a child, that's the worst question you can ask, because what if they lost? What you're saying is, what's important, the score, not, did you have a good game? Did you have fun? So absolutely, and we hear coaches that are just it's all about score, and it's really bad. It's not for me at all. So it's fun. But Andy, you look like you've got the right. You said all the right things. So is that not something you're interested in? You played loads of sports. Coaching, is that something you've ever done or looked at?
I did it in school. I used to teach younger years basketball and stuff. And then I was playing basketball up until about 2 years ago, and I was not coaching it, but I'd help out the younger players and stuff. But I do enjoy it, but I'm just too fat now. No, I messed up my ankle a couple of years back, and it's just been an issue. But no, I think I made some wrong life choices down the line, and I've sort of left all my sports aspirations behind, and maybe when my kid's older, I might go into helping out the school or any local teams if he chooses to play or whatever. But yeah, I think the what you're saying there about, say, like if my lad plays football, I think the right thing is to say, like, how did you do, rather than like say the score and stuff. You got to make them feel better, because it's a process, especially when they're young. If they're like professionals, then it should be like, you got to win this game. But when you're learning your skills, you got to work up. Yeah, I do enjoy coaching, I must admit, and learning. Yeah.
You enjoy coaching even though you hate people. How's that work?
Yeah, I know. Sport's different. You just forget about everything else, and you just concentrate on winning.
It was Adam, you're like this. It was Dennis Bergkamp. I'm clearly not gonna get this word for word because I haven't got it written down. But Dennis Bergkamp once said about coaching. It said, oh God, I can't even remember what it was now. It was something along the lines of your first team have to win the games. The players in all the other teams just have to get better. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. And Dennis Bergkamp knew a thing or two about football as well, didn't he? God bless him.
He did, yeah.
Team choice, though.
You say that, dude. You say that. Thierry Henry still says he is the best player he's ever played with, and he's played with the likes of Messi and Ronaldinho. Just think about that. He's the best player he ever played with.
He should have gone to a big club like United. That's all I'm going to say.
He went to a club, and we made him big. and he made us big. It was a lovely partnership. I would say that was the wonderful thing about Bergkamp and the wonderful thing about Henry and what they did then. Yeah, not so much now. Don't get me wrong. We're on the way to something. I don't know what it is, but it ain't that. I tell you what, though, I've learned something. That it's something I'm going to really keep in mind if my kids start playing competitive sport. And I use that word loosely, but if they start playing sport, I won't be asking them what the score is. I'll be asking them how they got on, who they've kicked, and why they got sent off after 15 minutes, that kind of stuff.
While you're watching Sesame Street, you got an exam.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Should have been playing football. What are you doing? You sat here watching Big Bird.
What is I know you guys, and because Gaz isn't here, we haven't done it. But you guys, is it NFL? So I just how have your teams gone? I know you three have got some kind of bet going on. So
I'm not involved in this.
You are. You're a pivotal part, given the fact that now the Lions lost again.
Yeah, it's like I'm the Arsenal of the group. It's like, no, I'm not entering this because there's.
Arsenal. See, I read something online like we're favourite for relegation, yeah, and United are challenging for the title, yet we're sitting there on the same amount of points. That's what I keep seeing. Arsenal.
On the it is the NFL, isn't it?
Yeah, NFL. That's
just because I my brother Steve was a big fan. He used to have the magazine and everything, but I don't know anything about it. When you say like 4-1. I don't even know what that means.
If you've won 4, you lost 1. So
is that all it is?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's as simple as that. So the Lions, see if you can figure this one out, dude. The Lions are 0-7. 0-7.
0 as in 0.
Yeah, that's the one.
Played 7, won 0, lost 7.
That's it. Yeah, we're there. And actually, and this might be the reason. This might be the reason why Gaz is absent, because they got absolutely annihilated by the Buccaneers, 38-3, and they've moved to 3-4. Now the Steelers didn't play; they had a bye week, so that DBR conference, the Steelers are now sitting top of that on a technicality because we played less. We've got the Browns next week, and the Browns aren't looking so good. They've just lost their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. They brought in a new guy. I'm pretty confident we're going to win that one. We've got a very good track record against Cleveland Browns. I'm quite excited about it.
What actually is the wager? I think if you actually stated what the wager is.
Yes, it's a meal. It's a meal. The loser has to pay for a meal for the three of us.
There's not a family as well, partners as well.
Well, it's looking that way now, isn't it, Andy?
Well, you have to ask Gaz.
Well, this is the thing, you see, because ultimately, although they're having a stinker, next week you've got the Eagles, and they're 2-5, so they're beatable. The Bears have got the 49ers, who are 2-4. We've got the Browns, who are, I think, 4-3. So we've arguably got the tougher game, but I still fancy us to come through that one. It only takes the Bears to lose 3 games and the Lions to win the next 3. And Gaz is paying for the Big Macs.
Yeah, but they've lost 7.
They have lost 7, and sadly, they probably will lose the next 10 as well.
They're all placed equally, though, in the standings.
Yeah,
we're all at that bottom table.
We're all at the bottom. Mind you, now I think that the Bears, they might be second.
Oh, yeah. No, third.
Is it third now? Yeah, they might be third after losing that one. Yeah,
because Lions are bottom.
The Lions and the Bears are in the same conference, so they're bottom. The Steelers can just move off the bottom, but I couldn't believe the Bengals beat the old Ratbirds. That was a bit of a shock, to be honest. The Bengals have been perennial losers for quite a few years, and they've got a decent side. But I don't think we can talk about the NFL and not mention the Arizona Cardinals, who are now they're the polar opposite to Andy's Lions. They're 7-0, so they played 7-1-7. JJ Watt's gone down there. JJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year numerous times. Fantastic player. They got James Conner down there at running back from the Steelers, and a young lad called Kyler Murray at quarterback, who he was the number 1 pick in the NFL. I think year before last or last year, I can't remember. He was the number 1 pick. He's a quarterback. He was also the number 1 draft pick in the MLB, but chose to play the NFL as well instead. So he could have played baseball as well. He's a very, very talented individual. So we can't rule them out. We can't rule them out at all.
So just on the NFL, how many games do they play? And is it like football in the UK? You finish most points, you win.
It's a little bit more complicated because there's four teams in a conference who each play each other twice, and there's a very complex mathematical equation as to who you then play. People from your same conference, people from the opposite conference. So ultimately, you'll play 17 games, and then the top teams go through, and then you got a number of wildcard games. It's quite complicated to work it out in terms of who plays who. But yeah, once you get into that top position, you can win your conference, and you've got the title there. But then you play off, and you play in that Super Bowl, and that is a huge, huge game. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal to win that Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, isn't that just about the halftime singing?
It's not been about the halftime singing since Bruce Springsteen did it. The rest have been bloody appalling, absolutely appalling. I did see who was doing it this year, and I don't know who it was. We do. While we're talking about NFL, I do have a little bit of other business to tie up, because last week we mentioned the fact that I've been asked to do a wedding, and I emailed them, gave them all the reasons probably why they shouldn't use me, but I said ultimately I'd do it if you can't get anybody else. And I got an email back the next day saying, "Yeah, we can't get anybody else. Can you do it?" I was like, well, "Okay, all right. Let me look into this." So I said I will do it, but from what I've found out, if I marry you, you will not be legally married in the UK. If I did it in the States, you would be legally married. But if we do it in the UK, you won't be legally married. I am not a registered celebrant. So I looked into what I would have to do, and it's like a 5-day course. It costs $2,000, and it's like 5 Saturdays. And I said, look, ultimately, I can't commit to doing that for you. And frankly, the wife will kick my ass if I spend $2,000 on this. So
I just need to fly you out to the US then.
Well, this is it. We just all need to go to Vegas.
So you're about as qualified as me and Andy then to marry a couple in the UK.
In the UK, yeah, but not in the States, dude. Listen. If you and Catherine want to renew your vows, I'm your man.
But you could probably renew our vows in the UK because that's not a legal marriage.
Oh no, we'd be doing that one in Vegas, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, if you need a child christening, I'm your man.
They've both been done.
Okay. Does your house need exercising? Exercising? Is that the right word?
It's looking a bit on the heavy side. So yeah.
Well, I thought that when I dropped the beers afterwards, you could do a couple of hours on the old exercise bike. What's the word? Exercising. What's the bloody word? Exorcism. Do you want me to perform an exorcism? That's what I'm asking you.
I don't think the house is haunted. It's only about 50 years old.
It means nothing, dude. It means nothing. It could have been built on some kind of graveyard. I've seen the films.
Oh dear.
And on that bombshell. Yeah, in all seriousness, interesting episode, that one. I think Gaz will be disappointed he missed that, actually, because I think there's a few other questions that we had there that maybe he would have given a different opinion to. And maybe just next week we'll get him to chime in on a few of those, so you can listen back and see what he has to add on those. So let's go around the room and let's say our goodbyes. We'll go to our guests first.
It's been great to be on again, and always good to pick your brains. And shame Gaz wasn't here, but no, enjoyed it, and I'm really impressed that the candle's still lit in your pumpkin.
I am as well, to be honest, because this pumpkin is virtually about 90% mush. It's only the outer skin. And we made it on the weekend, and Matilda just picked it up and dropped it immediately, which is why it's all cracked all around the front. It's like, time well spent, that was. So, yeah, I'm impressed. I can't tell you how bad it smells. I cannot tell you how bad it smells, because it is about 90% mush.
Not as bad as this plum porter from Aldi.
Well, not as bad as that bloody Marmite beer either, I'll tell you that for free. Andy?
Yeah, it's been another thought-provoking episode. It'd be interesting for Gaz to answer some of them, just with him working in education as well. Yeah. So he's got first-hand experience of what the kids are going through and all that sort of jazz. But yeah, Andy out.
Absolutely. And I think we'll stick something in the commentary at the bottom in the notes and on social media. If you've been affected by any of the issues that we've talked about here, we'll stick a contact number that you can ring, because we certainly aren't qualified to deal with those issues. But we'll stick a number in. Contact them if you want to speak to anybody about some of the more serious issues that we've covered off. and probably a bit more of a serious episode than we normally do on Tall Boy Radio. But I think that's important from time to time to dig into those important issues. And anyway, from this one, it's been an interesting one. Look forward to having Dave on again at some point in the future, and we'll catch you then. Take care, guys.